Welcome to the conversation that's as diverse as the dogs that we adore. This is Gundogs and Guard Dogs, the ultimate podcast dedicated to talking sense about dogs, with Les Graham and Ross McCarthy, both dog behaviourists and trainers for longer than they care to mention. From the wild north in bonnie Scotland to the busy streets and parks of inner city London, they bring you valuable insights and honest conversations about the social predator you share your home with. So here we go, about 45 minutes of gun dogs, guard dogs, good dogs, some maybe not so good dogs, and a dash of gossip.
Listen, are you alright there, Les? You just
Yeah.
had a bit of a moment. Yeah,
Hello.
so this has come around quickly, hasn't it? Our second of this podcast, talking about, we thought we'd have a little chat, didn't we, about how to choose a dog, really, and how to sort of raise a puppy, because it can be, I have quite a lot of puppies, it seems, and it can be, I find it a really easy process to raise a puppy, but I know people find it really very difficult. So what's funny?
It depends on the puppy. It depends on the line.
Well, it does depend.
And it
but I mean,
depends on the breeder.
it does depend. A lot of it does depend on the breeder. That gets overlooked a lot. But equally, they do sleep a lot. And if you kind of facilitate that, then I find it quite easy.
Okay, so what was your first puppy? Because
Jack
you had
Russell.
rescue dogs for a long time, didn't you?
I had a Jack Russell puppy, and then a German Shepherd puppy. Then I had a lot of rescue dogs, shepherds, and then back to the Rottweiler puppies.
Okay, and how old were you when you had your first? What was your first puppy when you left your mum's? Because
My
that's
first
probably
puppy-
different, isn't it? Living on your own and getting your puppy than
Yeah.
when mum helps.
No, it is. So my first puppy was a German Shepherd called Kane. That was when I was about 19.
Is that the one that bit you badly?
No, he was a rescue from the... No, I didn't screw it up that badly. He was a rescue from...
I
that
didn't
was-
mean it like that.
No, that one you did so well at Mullager. No, that was... I was given a German Shepherd by the RSPCA, which I shouldn't have been given. I was about 18 then, and had this German Shepherd that had been partially sort of security trained badly, really dominant shepherd. And I'd only had it for a little while, and I'd had lots of visitors and things, and got away really quite lightly with a few incidents. And then one day, it was mounted a friend of mine who was round for dinner, and I pulled him off, and he turned around and just sunk his teeth into my arms and hands.
Wow.
So that was a hospital trip. So no, that wasn't a dog that I'd raised from puppyhood. Kane was nice. He came after that.
Where did you get him from? How did you go? Because it's the way that we used to find puppies years ago is very different to how we find puppies now.
Yeah, but we didn't really have the internet, did we? We didn't have it.
We didn't have the
really
internet.
have it. We had the yellow pages, and that was it. Or you spoke to your friends. That was it, really.
Or the pet shop notice board.
Yeah, or adverts. Well, I'll tell you what, there were adverts. Do you remember Auto Trader? And
Yes, there was adverts in the Auto Trader.
What's that other one? Part Exchange, was it called?
I don't know that one. I
Something,
remember
there were two of them
Trader
together. But they used to sell cars, and adverts for dogs and stuff as well were in that. So,
and the local magazines, like for us, it was the Shields Gazette. On a Friday, would have puppies for sale in it.
Yeah, we did. We had it in the Tame Gazette was ours, and the back of that. I think my first dog, with a Jack Russell, was 50 quid at the back of the paper, born on a farm.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you did, wasn't it? 50 quid, Jack Russell, that'll do. That's what you want. Now, a German Shepherd I got from a breeder in Newbury. Can't remember how I really knew about him. I wanted a sort of working line dog, wanted a long coat, and went down. Didn't meet the parents, saw the dad walked from a distance because you couldn't touch him, couldn't get anywhere near him.
Okay.
And the mum we saw through her, in the kennel, and then came away with 8-week-old puppy.
Right.
So probably not the way to do it, but
probably not the way to do it. But then that's how it was done
Yeah,
back in
but
the day.
we didn't know any better, did we? Well, I didn't know any better then, whether to, I wouldn't have it now. But the parents had their health tests. I knew about that. The parents had their hip scores and things, which was a big thing at the time with German Shepherds. So no, it did all right. He did. I mean, I know what you're getting at, saying it's, not easy, but no, he did. We had a new kitchen floor lino put down.
Oh,
A lovely, lovely, and we couldn't, literally, I was 18, whatever, 19. We
uh-huh.
didn't have thousands of pounds to splash out, but we just had a really nice kitchen. The rest of the house needed to be a beautiful kitchen with this lino. And yeah, we went out one day and came back, and there wasn't much of it left on the floor. Well, it was all on the floor, but not
and so
one
no
piece.
crate training then?
No, didn't do crate training. I don't think I'd ever heard. No, not even a consideration. No. No, it wasn't a consideration. No, we had newspaper on the floor, the toilet training purposes.
Yeah.
And that was it, really. So those just muddled through. I knew about socialization and things like that, obviously. I knew how to go out and do all of that stuff. But yeah, well, then there wasn't really a lot. I mean, there were dog magazines, weren't there, obviously, but there wasn't a lot of information that you could source other than through your local training club. If you had one.
If you had one, yeah.
Yeah, so that's that. What about your first? Because you had a lot of rescue dogs, didn't you, previously? Or did you? Or they were just mixed breeds?
No, not so much. I had a puppy when I was still at my mum's, and that was from my sister's bitch who got caught by the local stud on our first season. So that was Kim.
That sounds typical of its time, doesn't it? That sounds
very typical of its time. I was
story.
like 12, I think, 13.
That was in the black and white days, wasn't it? That
it was, yeah. Colour didn't exist then. The world was still in black and white. and I had a black and tan dog. I don't know how that happened when the world was black and white, but I had a black and tan, and she was gorgeous. She was my little soul dog. She was amazing. Only bitch I've ever had.
Oh, was she? Interesting.
Yeah, only bitch. And like that, she came out. I don't know how I trained her. She was amazing. She did everything I asked her. She would do like commando crawl, and she was just awesome.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know how you'd have done that.
She used to come ride. She'd sit in front of me on a horse, and yeah, she's amazing. And then my next one was kind of a rescue puppy, although we don't call them rescues. It's really interesting. People now wear the rescue as a badge. A badge of I got a rescue dog. Well, I suppose Sabre was a rescue dog, but to me, he was just a rehome. My sister's friend's bitch had got caught, and they couldn't toilet train Sabre. They just couldn't get on top of his toilet training at 9 weeks old, so they're going to get him put to sleep, which was what they used to do back in the day. You can't train a puppy. Let's knock it on the head kind of thing. So I took Sabre on at 9 weeks, and he was a nice little dog. He was another mutt, another Heinz 57 brindle. Had these
really have a lot of pedigree dogs around, did you?
No, I can only remember one pedigree in the street, and that was Laddie, and he was a huge black and white border collie with a big ruff. He was a stunning dog. So there was him, and then one of my mates had a staffy called Bruce.
Okay.
And he was a tan staffy, and they were the only two pedigrees that I knew.
Yeah.
Right up until I got my Labrador.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know any other pedigrees. But Sabre was an interesting little puppy, and then I rehomed him because I moved down south when I was 18. But I never planned on keeping him. He was always a rehome. Do you know? And he was always a let's help this little puppy out and get him a nice family home.
Yeah.
So, but I'd never class him as a rescue dog, even though I suppose he was, because I rescued him from being put to sleep.
Yeah.
And he had issues. I mean, the little bugger was a biter. He bit. He was difficult to toilet train.
Yeah.
He's a bit of a whirling dervish, but he's a neat little dog.
Yeah, no, it's nice. So how did you go about selecting when you first decided that you were going to get a pedigree dog? How did you select your breeder? Because again, I suppose you were quite new to, not new to the dogs, but you weren't doing what you're doing now, are you? Do you know what I mean? You were,
Yeah. Well, I fell in love with this little black Labrador, puppy Barney, and when hunting for his line, so I got in touch with the woman who bred him, and she wasn't breeding anymore. So then got in touch with the guy who had the sire, and he pointed me in the direction of Jill Stagg, and I went down to meet her, and I met Willow, his mum, and all I said to Jill was I wanted a male dog, and I didn't want the firstborn. I didn't want to get a really dominant dog. That was my belief. Was I didn't want the firstborn, and he wasn't first. I don't know. It was in my head. Firstborn's strongest because it pushes its way out.
And you don't want that one.
Didn't want that one. So I ended up with Bart, who was like incredibly dominant, and he was the only dog in the litter.
Oh, was he? Oh, okay.
He was the only dog.
Oh, and she got him, did you? She let you have him?
She let me have him.
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't firstborn. Fidget, who she kept, was firstborn.
Yeah.
And I said, I just wanted a black dog, not firstborn. That was my shopping list. And oh my God, he was an interesting first Labrador to have. That was oh my God.
Yeah.
He was a really, really strong dog.
You never quite know what you're going to get, do you? I know, best laid plans and everything else. You're never quite, particularly with males. I think bitches are slightly different in the fact that they often remain fairly constant from when you get your female, whereas males can alter quite a lot, can't they, at maturity and things that you're not quite sure what you're going to achieve, what you're going to
I think when they get that testosterone surge, depending on who is around them, will really impact what happens from that point on. So I think when they get the testosterone surge, that pushes them, into adulthood. I think at that point, if they're with like a weak owner or weak energy, it can go badly wrong.
Which it does. We see it all the time. Yeah. So have you changed now since your first puppy, not wanting the first one out and all the rest of it?
That couldn't go.
How do you now select, or how would you now go about selecting a breeder?
Well, it is interesting because Angus was a Kiwi dog, as you know, and his breeder wasn't the best. Like, I was really spoilt with Jill because Jill was she stopped breeding now. She was a fantastic breeder.
Just for the reference of our listeners, Kiwi dog is a dog from New Zealand. It's not some amazing.
It's not a breed. It's not a Kiwi dog's not a breed.
It's to save you googling
it. Yeah. So, Jill was an amazing breeder. She had working dogs. She still has working dogs. Dogs kennelled. They're out in kennels. Amazingly clean kennels. Very well looked after, really well socialized. She used to sit out with them all the time and bring them into the house, so they got used to, like, one at a time she'd take them out in the car, have them in the garden. So really, really well socialized dogs, puppies. And then when I got Angus, lived in New Zealand, was looking for a hairy Labrador, really, because I was doing competitive obedience as well as my gun dog stuff, and I wanted something with a bit of fur.
Yeah.
Didn't like collies. Collies aren't my thing.
No.
Tried working a couple of collies. You know what people are like. Trainers are lovely. It's like, here, Les, you have a dog with a bit of hair here. Try a collie. Try like a fawn beardie. Try this. Try bearded collie. But I love the look of the Labrador. I love the retriever head. It's got, like, the male retriever head's got a nice strong stop forehead and so on. So I wanted a hairy dog. So they said golden retriever, and again, naive, didn't realise how different in temperament a golden retriever is from a Labrador retriever. My God, they're like chalk and cheese. But Angus chose me. There was 2 dogs left, and Angus chose me. I went to the loo, came out, and he was sitting waiting for me, and it's like, right, okay, you're my dog.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, how not to choose a dog.
How not to choose a dog. And actually, that brings me on to something interesting, actually, because you said, that's your dog. I remember you had another little kind of key learning experience just after that, didn't you? About whether that was your dog or whether it was going to be your dog's dog.
Yes, I did. Still in New Zealand. So this whole thing about bringing a puppy home and raising it, the breeder, the Angus came from a big vineyard in New Zealand. There was like 15 acres. And once the puppies got to a certain age, she just opened the doors and let the puppies go and explore the vineyard, you see. And she also had like a room much bigger than my office. And she had some straw bales and she had like paper down everywhere on the carpeted floor. And inevitably what would happen is that the puppies would pee and the paper would get all churned up. So the puppies were peeing on carpet. And so that's why he was conditioned to wee on carpet. And she always fed them out in the grass as well. So they would literally eat and toilet at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. So
nice.
really bad. And this is why finding a good breeder is so important when you get a puppy.
Well, they do so much of the work for you, don't they? If you get
a good breeder will do a lot of the work for you. They'll do that nurturing and get them set up right. So when I brought Angus home, he would only wee on carpet. So I'd literally go out with him in the middle of the night, and the second his paw touched carpet, he would wee. He would wee in his crate. He would poo in his crate, which is pretty unheard of but because that's the way he'd been raised.
Became conditioned to do that. They don't care, do they?
Became conditioned to do that, and also any small space he put him in, he would howl and howl and howl. He howled for 3 weeks solid. When he was out of the crate, he was fine, but he would just walk around weeing all the time because he was on carpet.
Yeah.
And so he really was the puppy from hell. And so I had to crate him to try and stop him toileting everywhere. Which meant he was howling because he wasn't free, he didn't have all of this freedom. And
no, he didn't have a vineyard. No vineyard for you.
There was no vineyard for him, you see. And poor Bart, I used to just leave him in the room with Bart, and we would, after 3 weeks, Kenny said, we need to sort this out, he's gone back. We didn't get any sleep. Yeah. So then, because of that, because I was leaving him with Bart a lot, crate to crate, crate to crate, it got to the point where he bonded more with Bart than he did with me.
Yeah.
And when it came to coming home and bringing the dogs back, I can remember having a very, very straight conversation with Noel Hutchinson, who trained me to be behaviourist. So he was my mentor. He took me to one side and he said, it's going to cost you a lot of money to get this dog to England. You're going to have to decide, is he your dog or is he your dog's dog? Because if he's your dog's dog, leave him here. Don't pay all that money to take back a dog that's not yours. And it was like cold water in the face, so like the ice bucket challenge thing. It was a real eye-opening, pivotal moment for me in what I was doing with dogs, because you hear a lot about people getting a second dog for their dog. And I fell into the trap, because it was easier. And it was during that 3 weeks when he was an absolute nightmare to live with that he bonded with his own species. And it's one of the reasons,
wouldn't he?
Because he would, because they speak the same language and the same species, and they know how to communicate with each other. And it's why I'm really hot on, when you bring home a puppy, try not to put it in the pack for the first 24 hours. Keep it with you, have it bonding with you, so that the dog associates the smell of you, the feel of you, the energy of you as being the most important thing in its life, not the other dogs in the household. Yeah. And people are always shocked by it, but having lived through it, I would always recommend, 24 to 48 hours, that puppy is your puppy and nobody else's. Don't bring people around to say hello to your puppy. Don't, it is you and puppy and nobody else.
Yeah. No, I do. I mean, I used to take it a bit further. I haven't done so much with the last puppy, but I've kept puppies separate for a long time.
Yeah.
When I've had puppies, obviously I have multiple dogs in the house, so the puppies really don't normally They see each other the way that my house, they can see each other, smell each other, and everything else. But they don't play and things because, like you said, they bond with each other more intently. So when you're out in the future with all of your dogs, you don't want, if one dog goes off to sniff a tree or chase a squirrel and you call another dog back, you want that dog to come to you because it's your dog, don't you? Not be like, actually, I'll carry on going over here with him. So I used to do it for a long time, but I don't think you need to do it for quite as long as I used to do it. I haven't done it quite so much this time, but they still always have that separation.
Yeah.
Then
and I don't put them together straight away. That
No.
the sleep in separate rooms for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. No, they still do actually. I've got one of my dogs, I've got a 9-month-old youngster, and he's still in a crate at the minute. So he's in a crate in another room away from the others. But I think it's really important because then ultimately in the future, if I go and see a client or whatever, then I can take a dog with me, or I can take 2 dogs and leave a dog, and do you know what I mean? Whatever variation, and they're cool. They don't freak out if I leave one at home because they're used to that, and I think that's really important. And a lot of people don't do that because they literally come in and they're like, see their pictures, don't you, on social media? Here's my dog and the puppy, and you think, well, that's going to screw that up then.
Yeah, they're very, very much a case of monitoring the interaction between the puppy and the older dog. And I do get photos of my puppy and my older dogs, but it might be like the 5 minutes a day when they're together.
Yeah, no, we all do, don't we? Because it's cute.
Yeah,
but
really cute.
Yeah, you just don't have free access, do you? You need some structure. And I think that's the key with puppies generally, is when you bring your puppy home, like I said, they sleep a lot, and you thought that was hilarious. But they do need a lot of sleep.
Yeah, because Angus didn't sleep.
Well, he was used to running all over the vineyard and
He was.
peeing all over your carpet. But they do need a lot of sleep for their development, don't they? And if you create the right structure, I'm not saying every dog's the toilet training, if the dog has been raised in a dirty environment from puppyhood and they get used to laying in their feces and their urine because they can't avoid that, then in that short window of time they have from sort of birth to 8 weeks or whatever, when you bring your puppy in, it's so powerful for conditioning that actually your toilet training then is a nightmare. If they're weeing and poo, because one of the main reasons we use a crate is so that we start teaching bladder and bowel control, isn't it? As well as not losing your kitchen lino. And, if they're peeing and pooing in the crate, then, you've got a very
it's really hard work.
Yeah, you've got a really difficult project. Again, depending on your environment, you're out of the house and everything else, but it's not an easy ride, which comes back to what you're saying again about if you're selecting your breeder and making sure that, they've done a bit of work for you.
Yeah, the breeder, and not just like before you bring your puppy home, but once your puppy's home as well, breeders play such a huge part because, I class myself as an experienced dog owner, but I've still contacted breeders afterwards, like certainly with Eleanor, who I got Emrys from, Eleanor Swift Nunley. Was it Eleanor Swift? I can never remember which way. Eleanor Swift, anyway, dog trainer. I've contacted her a couple of times after I brought Emrys home. I've got this. Are the other dogs in the litter doing that? Or did Mum used to do this? Is this a trait? Is this a family trait? And you can end up with I've got a really good relationship with her, and you can have really nice relationships with the breeders after you bring your puppy home, because they're always interested in what happens with the dogs. A good breeder is anyway.
They should be, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
No. And so how would you go about, I don't know, I think I've asked this already, like how would you now go about selecting a breeder? I know obviously you'd go through your various contacts and the type of dog that you wanted, but what would your advice be to anybody else if you're thinking of buying a puppy? How would you source a breeder and what would you look for?
If you're looking for pedigree, then you could go to the kennel club, see which breeders have got an assured breeder. And I find the kennel club assured breeder scheme
laughable.
Thank you. That's not the word I was going to use, but I'm glad you jumped in there. They don't follow it up. Just because you're assured, just because you're not an assured breeder doesn't mean you're not a good breeder. No. And just because you are an assured breeder doesn't mean you're a good breeder.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, we've all, I know we've both heard of puppy farms by a very, very well-known dog trainer who was a showed breeder, and she really made a mess of everything. And so the kennel club's probably the best place to start, and then the breed clubs, I would say. Contact the breed. So and talk to a couple and say, oh, I was thinking about this line, or I was thinking about that line, because you'll get a really good idea. So say, for example, we're both breeding Rotties, okay? Somebody contacted me and says, oh, okay, so what do you think of such and such line? I would be more honest than you would potentially about your line, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a good way of doing it. But, I mean, I found Emrys because I'd heard Eleanor was breeding. And so I stalked her a bit on Instagram. I had a look, so what her dogs are doing, read a little bit about her, and I was lucky she writes for the Shooting Times, so she's a Gundog girl, and read a couple of her articles, and I thought, yeah, she sounds a bit sensible. And then I got in touch with her, and she was interesting because she said she's not going to sell any dogs to anybody who's not interested in working or competing them.
Yeah, good, fair enough, eh?
And I thought it was really good. So I knew this before I contacted her. So I had my little spiel ready, and it's like, oh, hello, I don't know if you know me, I'm Lez Graham, and I'm really interested, and blah, 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 and I will work the dog, and I will train it, and I'll take my plans to take it shooting, I might compete, blah, blah, blah. And she says, okay, I know who you are. And it's like, oh, thank God. But you have to, depending, it's not just about the breeder being good for you, but your breeder should be asking you lots of questions as well. And if you go to a breeder and they just go, oh yeah, give me your money, then I would be hesitating. Personally, I want to be grilled. I want people to say to me, how are you going to feed your dog? You know, what's your thoughts on vaccinations? Especially because I have like working line dogs, so they, you know,
well, basically, why are you good enough for one of my puppies? Why
absolutely.
do you think you're gonna, I'm gonna choose you as a home for one of my puppies? You better justify yourself. Do you know what I mean?
And I think it's got to be a two-way interview process. I don't think it's just us saying, are you doing this, that, and the other with your dog? I think it has to be a two-way process. What about you? How would you go about finding a Rottie?
Probably now. I mean, I did when I first decided to get a Rottweiler. I did about 4 years of research on, because I wanted a working line dog, and so I did about 4 years research into various breed lines and breeders and things. But I realised that's kind of fanatical. Not everybody's going to sit and do that. So I kind of, by the time I was ready to get one, I knew kind of the lines in the dog that I wanted. And found a breeder that way. And now they're, you know, quite good friends of mine. But I would probably go to the breed clubs, as you mentioned, in the first instance. So all of the breeds have a breed club, primarily involved in the showing aspect of dogs, don't they? Working line dogs are slightly different. But there are lots of working societies as well. So like, you know, field trials clubs, working trials clubs, all of those things, if you are interested in sort of the working aspects of the breed instead. But yeah, I'd go to the breed clubs, have a chat with the secretary, and even probably go to a local show if I could, and talk to people there and see the dogs, and yeah, have a chat and see.
And what about if you didn't know what breed you wanted? Because when you were talking there about going to like breed shows, I was thinking of Discover Dogs.
Yeah,
which is a huge show, isn't it?
It's really difficult because when you go to places like Discover Dogs, they're there to promote the breed, aren't they? So when you go over and talk to them and say, I've never seen a Lagotto Romagnolo before, what's it like? They're not going to say, well, it's an absolute nightmare, don't get one, because that's not why they're there, are they? So you do get a little bit of misinformation. Bias. Yeah, just about. And you sit and like reading breed books and stuff. Some of the breed books are honest. But again, a lot of them, they don't tell you, like the Cocker Spaniel, for example, has a high propensity to aggression towards people in the family group. Yeah. But you don't see that in the breed books, and like organizations like Spaniel Aid and stuff, they have lots of these dogs that resource guard everything, and you know,
spaniels are a nightmare for resource guarding.
They are a nightmare, which is hence, you know, the cockapoo as well is. But yeah, you don't really find out about those. I mean, all of the people that have got Cocker Spaniels, for example, and I say to them what I've just said to you, really high propensity blah, like, well, we had no idea. All we read was they're good family dogs, they're this, they're that.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose most of them are. We just see the ones that aren't, don't we? But, you know,
And
it's difficult.
it's funny because the groups on Facebook I find really funny because I'm in quite a few of the cocker groups, and it's so funny. People go, "Oh, working cockers on, they're not aggressive, they're not aggressive," and it's like, hang on a minute, I've worked with more biting cockers
Yeah,
than I have with any other breed.
yeah.
You know, and you're right, they don't tell you what they really like.
No. And what you can do, of course, as an option is kind of members of the Canine Feline Behaviour Association or whatever will offer, most people, if you ask, will offer like a pre-puppy Zoom. So actually to talk about these are the breeds on our short list. I'm impartial about the breeds. I've not got a dog to sell. I've not got a puppy to sell.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? I don't have a bias. So actually, if people say in your experience, what do you think about the Cavalier King Charles Spaniel as, you know, a fit for our family? Then I'll give an honest opinion on that. If they say, what do you think about, you know, a Black Russian Terrier? Give my honest opinion about that. It's
Yes.
That's probably quite a good way to do it. And also they can then signpost people to various breeders and things like Champ Dogs. The website is quite a good website for
Champ Dogs is an
breeders.
excellent website.
And making sure that, you know, you're aware, you need to do research, make sure you know what the health tests are for that breed. Often breeds have different requirements for health tests, suffer with different
issues,
yeah, ailments, problems, you know, inherited conditions that you can test for, so that you're not breeding dogs with those conditions, and, you know, your puppy's not going to have it. So you need to know which of those are specific to the breed that you're looking for, and then make a short list of breeders and go and get a grilling from them and give them a grilling as well.
But sorry, what about if you're not looking for a pedigree though? I mean, cockapoos are still really, really hot dogs. All the doodles are, although I don't think the Labradoodle is quite as popular as it used to be, because
I don't think so.
We were getting a lot of giant ones, weren't we? Where you got the
huge, some of them.
So some of them were absolutely massive, and so I think the large. Just the fact that the Labradoodles were so big, and also a lot of the Golden Doodles, which is a Golden Retriever cross poodle, they were getting quite big. People have really hooked onto the cockapoos, haven't they?
Yeah, they're incredibly common, aren't they?
Really common, and still not a pedigree, still a mutt.
Yeah, I think. I mean,
people say, "Oh, I've got a second generation cockapoo," but there's no such thing as a second generation cockapoo. A cockapoo with a cockapoo is not a cockapoo. If you know what I mean. It's like, it's not a cockapoo, is it? Which is what it would be if it was a cockapoo cross cockapoo.
Yeah, I know.
Really, it would be a cockapoo, wouldn't it?
Cockapoo. Quite like that. I might get one of them.
That sounds pretty cool, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's true, because it's a cocker spaniel crossed poodle.
Yeah. I find it really difficult to answer your question, actually, about what if you're not looking for crossbreed, because actually most people that there are some decent cockapoo. There are people that breed cockapoos as best you can with health tested parents. They do it. They raise their puppies properly and all the rest of it. But in most cases, it's people just trying to make a quick bit of cash and haven't done any health tests. And if you decide then that you're going to get one of those, then you kind of take your chance. And there is, to be honest, a lot of luck involved in buying dogs. You can go and pay X amount of thousands of pounds for a dog with all of the health tests, all, you know, amazing parentage and all the rest of it, and end up with a dog that does its cruciate ligaments and whatever, all sorts. Or you can go and buy a cockapoo from down the road, not health tested, and it lives till it's, 25 and never goes to the vets. But you have to do what the best you can do, don't you, to select the dog of the correct temperament and, health that you're hoping to achieve, but also a bit of luck involved.
Yeah, massive amount of luck. Definitely due diligence, you know. Like with Bart, my first lab, he ended up with, oh God, what's it called? ODJ, the elbow. We had arthritis in his elbow, but that was he damaged his elbow. I'm pretty sure the crate was dropped because his ulna split, and then he when it was x-rayed, there was a lot of ossifites in, and the ossifites, the body putting down calcium to try and heal, split the bone further, and so we think it was like it splintered as a fracture. But he was such a strong dog, it didn't show we moved out in the May and he went lame Christmas Eve. But when you looked at the x-rays, the amount of ossification that had taken place on the joint had gone back. So
a long time.
And he was health tested, he was amazing, and he just took a knock.
Yeah.
And then that caused issues for the rest of his life, really, because he was arthritic, and then he, from a young age, and then he had to have lots of drugs, and then the drugs took over. So I think all you can do is apply due diligence in your breeder and health tests and the post-puppy support from the breeder as well, and just hope for the best, and then feed the dog the best you can afford to feed, and just look after your dog. Don't fill it full of chemicals and everything.
Yeah.
And rubbish.
Yeah. I think there's an awful lot for new dog owners. There's an awful lot of considerations, aren't there, that people probably don't think about. They get advice from their vet, probably when they're having their puppy vaccinated for the third time or whatever. Get advice on nutrition and everything from the vet, and sometimes that's not the best. But it's difficult because there are lots of considerations, and if you don't know, you don't know, do you? Unless you do, like I said, pre-puppy Zoom or something like that, or have a puppy consult with a trainer or a behaviourist to set you down on the right path, really.
I think social media is quite can be quite detrimental for puppy owners as well, because there's so much advice out there, and you don't know who's at the other end of the keyboard, do you?
No.
And so you go into the different groups, and they go, okay, I'm having this issue. Oh, do this, this, and this, and people do it, and then they come unstuck.
Make it worse.
They make it worse.
No, it's very difficult. It is difficult, but I suppose it's the nuances as well that people need to know, isn't it? I mean, when I was working with a client recently that's got a puppy that's never had a dog before, and is peeing all around the house, and I'm like, you've got to, either the puppy is with you, or it's in the crate, or it's in the garden. So they're really, by default of that, there is no room for error. And while we were there, and I'm like watching the puppy like a hawk, because you have to, the puppy's running about. You're watching it like, oh, and of course she's trying to show me this, show me that, and this is the food I've got. These are the treats I've got. And I'm like, you can't do this. If your puppy's loose in the house, you can't be reading ingredients on the back of your, dog treats. It's day 2 you've had this dog. Put the puppy in the crate, or let's just go and sit in the garden, bring the treats out, and we'll read the ingredients on the treats in the garden. And then the puppy can freely pee when it wants, can't it? But no, it's that. She said, oh, God, watch it like that. I'm like, yeah, that's what I mean. When it's in your presence, you're present. You've got to, it's not forever, is it? It's not for long, but you can't. No. The more peas and poos you have in your house, the worse it is.
Well, you're just repeating the behaviour, aren't you? You're just cementing the pathway in the brain to pee on carpet.
Yeah, which is why puppy pads are a bad idea, because
puppy pads, I hate them with a passion.
Yeah, bizarre. People have these things all around the house, and then of course they wonder why the dog starts peeing on the doormats.
And not just that. I mean, they were developed because when I wrote Manners, Manners Not Mayhem, my puppy book, one of my puppy books.
Nice insert. Yeah,
I thought I'd just slide it in there.
Nice.
I did quite a bit of research on the puppy pads, and they were developed by a carpet fitter to protect the carpets.
Wow.
Nothing to do with dogs. And he put a smell in them to encourage the dogs to go on that rather than peeing on the carpet, you see. But it was he was doing it as a protection of the carpet and the carpet rotting rather than for the benefit of dog behaviour. No. And but all that happens is, the dogs scratch, and then all of a sudden that scent that is in the puppy pad gets scattered all over the house.
Yeah.
And the dog then goes to that instead. And you just have to train the dog twice then, don't you? You train the dog once to the puppy pad and once to the garden.
Yeah, you might
just
sort of
cut
skip
out the middle
that step. Yeah, totally. I mean, even like little Bill I had, she came to me from a client, didn't she, when she was about 2, I think she was.
Yes,
And
naughty biting Billy.
Naughty biting Billy, naughty peeing Billy, so she wasn't toilet trained either. And still, up until she was 18, if she had the opportunity to pee on a doormat, she would pee on a doormat.
It's so ingrained, isn't it?
She would. If we were in someone's house, you would have, or you know, in a hotel, whatever, you'd have to watch, because she would at some point go and have a little pee on the doormat after, 16 years of being toilet trained, so to speak. She would still go and seek that out through that early conditioning that she had.
Yeah, it is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, it's important that you get it right, isn't it? But
and then what about like we've talked a lot about toilet training and stuff, but what about socialization? And
God, that's a whole topic on itself.
It is okay. Let's not talk socialization. How about we talk socialization next time?
Let's do that, because that's a whole 45 minutes.
Especially the way things are at the minute.
Yeah, just on its own, that is. Yeah. No, I think no, obviously that's incredibly important, but we'll talk about that next time.
Yeah, I think that'd be really good. So what is like a closing shot or closing words of wisdom? What would you recommend for new puppy owners or people, considering getting a puppy? What are the essentials, would you say?
Well, I think don't rush into it just because it's the school holidays or you've just decided that you want one. Do your research the breeds, talk to people that own those breeds or those mixed breeds, whatever it is that you're looking for. Get as much information as you can about the temperament. Meet the parents, make sure the parents have nice temperaments. Talk to the breeder of the dog, make sure that, they know what they're doing, they've done as best they can and all the health tests and things. And then top tip, get your puppy no older than 8 weeks, and then seek the help from a dog professional to make your first few months a lot easier than they may otherwise be.
Brilliant. Thank you. What about equipment?
Crate. Nice natural food.
Crate.
Natural food. Bit of vet bed. I always have a Kong, dental Kong, to give the puppy in the crate.
Yep.
Bowl, little puppy collar, little puppy lead, some nice toys.
That's it.
I think that's it.
Pretty much no puppy pads.
Don't need to spend your money on puppy pads.
Don't waste your money on the harness.
Don't need your harness. No, start your little bits of training, which we'll talk about next time.
Yes. Brilliant. So on that note, I shall see you next time for a chat about socialization.
Looking forward to that already.
You're very cheeky. Catch you later.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. It's not just gun dogs and not just guard dogs, but all things canine, as we hope you have discovered. Please like, share and subscribe and help us spread a bit of common sense back into dog ownership. And a review wouldn't go amiss either. Catch up with Les and Ross again in about 14 days for more canine conversations. Until next time, stay well and enjoy your dogs. Any dog-related questions or topics, just drop an email to talk@cfba.uk or message us via facebook.com/Gundogs and Guard Dogs podcast.